He is a multi-Emmy winner, as seen by those golden statues behind him in that cabinet. His IMDb page is longer than an Agatha Christie novel. I mean, let's be honest here. It's Mike Del Tufo, works on the Rich Eisen show, is head of audio operations there, and he's also an audio consultant, a sound mixing extraordinaire. And he joins me now. I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio, and this will be an opportunity to get into some storytelling with Mike. He has traveled a whole lot. He has worked Super Bowls. He works obviously with Rich Eisen, the NFL Network, Fox, TV shows galore. So we're going to have some fun bringing up some of the neat anecdotes that have come across him over the course of his career. And let's start here, Mike.
Go ahead, Brian.
What is a prank that you've pulled on Rich Eisen?
Oh, a prank to pull on Rich Eisen. I'm trying to think over the years. Ooh, let me think.
Or where you got him to laugh in a way that was memorable.
Okay, that's actually a good question. One of the things that I always was famous for is I have what they call audio drops. And audio drops, you hear them on the radio, you hear them on TV. It's like those little 1 or 2 second things that people play. And it's, I'll give you an example. Like in Howard Stern, it's the "oh my" and "hey now."
Yeah.
So if people don't know, well, in the NFL Network days, I was like literally notorious for recording stuff that we would do because you never knew the moment that you would get something funny. It started me at Fox when I had Terry Bradshaw. And with Rich, it also got good because both of those guys are amazing. So basically you hit play and record on like this little digicart device that records, and you wait for something to be funny, and then you take it and you clip it, and then you have that as a drop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of my most famous and most memorable moments was on NFL Network. Rich is doing a 2-way with Adam Schefter. I believe Adam's at one of the games we're doing, and Rich is in the studio. And it's Rich's, and I love Rich, and Rich I've known forever. But Rich is one of those guys that I know when he's going to talk and not. So I can open and close his mic. I kind of know what to do. Well, we go to Adam, and as we throw to Adam, essentially, Rich has something goes wrong with his earpiece, so he can't hear. So he thought his mic was closed, but his mic wasn't closed. And he yells for the audio guy that's offset to come on and like basically come and help him with his earpiece. Well, lo and behold, he yells at the top of his lungs, and I won't say the guy's name because I don't want to embarrass the guy that did it. But he yells his name, "Hey, bye!" And he goes, and it scares the hell out of me. Adam Schefter's on the remote, jumps because he hears it in his IFB. Well, I wind up saving that and using that whenever anything would go wrong on NFL Network. So like if Rich was doing something and like they didn't give him a shot sheet for like a play, or I would just have that "hey" yell thing. And it would always be at my ready in one of my hotkeys that I could hit anytime, because you never knew when something was going to happen. Like if Rich would turn, and Rich is he doesn't do that. But that moment was one of those moments, which I only got once with Rich. Like Rich never yells like that. He would never do something like that. And the reason why he did that is because the A2 guy would sit behind something. So he wanted him to hear him. But it was so funny, and I would constantly get Rich out of nowhere. You'd hear that, "hey," and everyone would jump on the set because it was so loud. And it was one of those funny things that I did all the time.
What is something that Rich does better than anyone in the profession?
Rich live is unbelievable. I have done more live hours with Rich sitting behind a mixing board than any human being in the world. And there's no question between all of the NFL Network games, pre-games, Super Bowls, drafts, Hall of Fames, you name it. Total Access shows in the early days of the NFL Network. And even now, going up to the show for 7 years, 3 hours a day, I've pushed faders with Rich talking more than I know it. There's no question. And I say this again, Rich live and being able to weed and wad through, to go through the weeds and waddle through a live craziness insanity makes Rich one of the best sports people on TV. Period. End of story. There is no doubt. I've worked with so many great ones, and I won't mention their names because I don't want them to get offended. But Rich in a live moment is unbelievable, to where he has taken us where we'll come in, the world's collapsing. We might not have someone on remote, and I'm talking about NFL Network days, or we're coming in a post-game show and up walks Kim Kardashian and Reggie Bush at the end of a Super Bowl, and they're literally walking on the set, and Rich is ad-libbing insane. It's insane. And I've never been able to get how he can do it. And listen to the producer who's yelling in his ear, and listen to the talent that are talking, and watch what's going on. It's insane. And to Rich's credit, he's the best. And I say that with there's not 1 ounce of doubt that to me is essential to be able to do what Rich does. And that is definitely 100% unequivocally the ultimate of working with Rich, and why I miss NFL Network and working with Rich, because of his ability to do that. He is, and I say it again, the best that I've worked with at going through the live events, taking you through it and weeding it. And I say going through the weeds because the weeds are this tall, and waddling through those weeds in live. Now, mind you, I've also worked with Rich. We're going on, it's coming up on like 17, almost 18. So he's the longest person I've worked with so I know, in a sense, other people that I've worked with, I love, and I have so many great hosts I've worked with. But Rich, it's amazing when he can do that. It really is.
No question. Let me turn the question back onto you now. And what makes you the best when it comes to sound mixing? And why does sound, in what way does it give you such a natural high?
Brian, that's a phenomenal question. And not many people ask me that, because they don't get the bad thing about a sound mixer is we're solo in a truck. You've seen pictures of me. Mm-hmm. You're sitting in a room, you're behind a gigantic mixing board, and you're by yourself. My biggest rush is the second that the assistant director counts down from 10 and sits there and goes 10, 9. The feeling that goes through my body is equal to nothing except for probably what a player or an athlete would get walking on the field for the first time or every time. And it's insane. The rush that I get is a rush that I cannot, there's no way to duplicate. No drug. There's nothing that can make me feel with those last seconds to when we come out live. And I've told, A2s that have worked with me, mixers people that have worked with me. A2s are basically assistants that are next to you in some shows and work with you. They mic people up. Sometimes they're tracking, music and tapes with you. There's things that they do. But I've told A2s and other mixers, my equality to how I could sit here and I try to put it like a kind of an equivalent, to use the term, is like a plane taking off. I'm the pilot of the audio plane. The audio plane is in my control. I sit in that chair and I'm essentially by myself. It's a solo you're a solo flight most of the time, especially in really big shows. So essentially you're throttling up, you're going down the runway, you're taking off, you're getting us to cruising altitude. The show is the same way. Before those last 10 seconds, you're on the runway. You know that the engine works. You've done your checks. You've tested everything. You know where everything is. You know that if you hit this button, the landing gear goes up. If you hit this button, you could, it'll turn on the emergency, overhead lights. You know everything about the cockpit that you're in. The only thing you haven't done is actually gone down that runway. So when I throttle up and I sit there in that first couple minutes of a show, it's kind of when you know everything's going on and you kind of can feel how everything's working. Okay, the mics all sound good. The music sounds good. Your levels are good. Everything kind of works, and you feel at that point, that's when that rush kind of tinkers down a little and it goes from like, say 10% down to like 8%, then like 7%. It's kind of like a heartbeat. And it literally, once okay, and like a pregame show, once you're at the main set, all the people talk at the pregame set, and then you throw to like one of the sideline reporters, they talk. Then you throw to the other sideline reporter, they talk. Well, everything's working. So you're kind of like, okay, we're cruising altitude. You're never really free to move about the cabin, because in the sense of moving free about the cabin, that would be basically not paying attention.
Yeah.
He always thinks I don't pay attention. He has never sat in a room with me when I've done a big show, like a pregame show for a Super Bowl, or I've done like a boxing fight. I need to record more of it for people to see, because when I'm on TV and I'm on the Rich Eisen show, he got mad because the other day I made fun of him where I don't really have to pay attention. And he was like, they misunderstood what I was saying. It wasn't that I don't pay attention. It's that I do it every day and it just comes easy. When you're doing a live show that's a one-time live show and it's an 8-hour show or a 3-hour show, and you're coming in there, your concentration level is, plus the fact that your heartbeat's up here, your concentration level and everything that you're doing at that point in time, because you don't do what you're doing every day. You're not doing exactly like Rich can do what he does every day because Rich is natural at it, and that's the thing that he's able to do. I'm able to do what I do sitting behind a big audio board because I've been doing it for every day for so many years. And you kind of get like the feeling that you got to sit there and kind of every show. I don't ever treat any show as it's worse or better. I treat every show the same. The difference is some shows are easier, some shows are harder. And the harder the show, that I've learned, and in a sense, is the more the concentration level. And that's the way I think anybody would ever, it's like the Super Bowl. If you're playing in the Super Bowl, a player is going to play at a different level than if he's playing in game number 3 in the preseason. Even though game number 3 in the preseason is big for him because it might get him a starting position, when you're in the Super Bowl, it's a totally different level. I treat, the individual show as a Super Bowl. The rest of the games are the games during the season. They're all very important because you're not playing in the Super Bowl if you mess up a lot. And the way I look at it is my career would be like nothing if I wasn't treating every game as if it was the game that we got to win. And I always want to win. Like I fear mistakes more than any person in the world. That's one of my biggest fears. And I since I was a little kid, it's one of my biggest fears. Making a mistake live in a show is essentially horrific for me. And it gets me down on any show. Now, when we're doing the Rich show and I'm able to joke around, it's kind of almost funny that I make mistakes and I screw stuff up because it makes good for the show. It doesn't make sense.
When you think of all of the years that you've worked pregame for Super Bowl shows, you talked about how, in essence, it's like being in a cockpit, full throttle on the runway, making sure that it gets into the air, the plane, hopefully not very much turbulence. Of all of those shows that you've done, Super Bowl pregame, which one had the smoothest landing when you look back?
I did 2 that are very memorable to me. The 2 that are very memorable for me are essentially, one of them was a Fox one and one of them was an NFL Network one. I did my last NFL Network Super Bowl, which was in New Orleans. I did the longest show pregame that I'd ever done in my life. I believe we went on the air somewhere in the area of 8 a.m. and we went off the air at 6 p.m. local. So essentially, we were on literally from 8 in the morning until 6 at night. I had to mix the entire show. I had the greatest crew with me in the room. I had my friend Mark Butler, my friend Brady Polanski, and my friend Jason Polanski, his brother, all in the room with me, helping me guide through the plane. That show should have been what I call a debacle. I had 2 team hotels. I had 2 hotels where the basically the teams stay. I had 2 bars. I had people at 3 or 4 different locations in the city, including like Bourbon Street. It was in New Orleans. And then I had multiple positions in the stadium where guys were constantly moving. So we were at the main set. Then I had a set on the side of the field. I had a set in this other box. I had a set outside with Chris Rose. So I had people all over the place. So the whole time that we're in the pregame show, there were many points of failure. When I went into that show, I turned to Brady, one of my best friend, my A2 that has worked on a lot of my shows with me. And I said, Brady, if we get through this, and Mark, who was with me, I turned to both of them. I go, if we get through this show flawlessly, we were the best crew that's ever worked in audio in a pregame in any world I've ever seen, because of all the moving parts we have that are in this. There's no way we're not going to F something up. And that's exactly what I said to them. I go, I swear to God, if we get through this, you guys, I'm buying all of you guys. I'm going to be like, I won the Super Bowl. You all get to go watch. I go, I'm going to be that quarterback because I know what we're doing. And we essentially did 8 hours flawlessly. And I watch other shows. People can't recreate what we did in those 8 hours. I watch shows. They'll never not make a mistake. And to me, mistakes, as an audio guy, oh my God, we literally sit there and we cringe. Oh, they forgot to open up this guy's mic, or they didn't track this piece of music, or they didn't track this, tape that was being played back. I hear all that. We went through that show without a mistake. I have it recorded. It's one of my most proudest moments of my life. And second only, and I always kind of put these even to my 2002 Super Bowl in New Orleans with Fox. It was my first Super Bowl that I did solo. In a sense of being solo, I had my buddy Dave Talvara, who was in the booth with me, who was my A2, but I was mixing the pregame show. And it was the first time in my life that I realized you're not mixing for like 15 or 20 people. You're mixing for 50 million people or 80 million people. And even though you're not mixing the game, I mixed the pregame. I want to go down in history as saying I mix a great pregame. I don't want to go down in history as saying I mix a great Super Bowl, because I don't. I mix a pregame. I've always been a pregame mixer. And I've done pregames. Even though I've done games now, I'm a pregame guy. I don't consider myself a game guy. So for me, that 2002 Super Bowl, we came in after 9/11 and we did, I think, a 3.5 hour or 4 hour pregame show. We had a lot of elements. Like we had to talk to Kandahar, Afghanistan. We had, a couple different remotes that were around town. We had the team hotels. We had the set at the side of the stadium and inside the stadium. And then we had a million performances in that pregame show. It was the first time they did America the Beautiful. It was the first time they did, they had major music performances in a pregame show. They had never done that before. Like Fox did it in 98, but not the same as they did it in 02. In 02, they took it to the next level. We had Paul McCartney playing the pregame show. We had I believe the Boston Pops play in the pregame show. We had all the presidents spoke in the pregame show. It was one of those moments that was just, you just didn't want to make it. And we got through that without a mistake. Like flawlessly went through that pregame show without a mistake. I watch shows today and I watch what guys do. Those shows, they're all great. And those guys are amazing. But like for me, those are the 2 shows that I put up against anyone that does this stuff and say, those are my proudest moments. My first NFC championship, it was in New Jersey, which was amazing. It was in the old Giant Stadium. And it was first time I had ever worked in a television truck alone. And Fox, the brilliant thing that Fox was always good with is they always gave you guys around you that were amazing. So like my crew for that Super Bowl pregame show, the one guy was Kevin McCluskey mixes NASCAR. Larry Meyer is the A2 for Fred Aldis who used to be the A game mixer, who just retired this year. He was one of my A2s. Alan Slansky was my, truck A2. All the guys that were with me were the best. Frank and Tim that were on the main set were the guys that had worked at Fox from day one. So they always surrounded you with people that you weren't going to fail. And I did the same thing when I did NFL Network. I built my crew up to where I surrounded myself with people. And again, you're only as good as the weakest link that should be the strongest link. And without your crew, you're nothing. And I always believe that. And I've lived my life like that. And that's what those 3 shows kind of equally all hit the point that the question that you just asked.
You said as well how severe you take one little mistake and how much you cringe and how painful it is. Why do you think, and where do you think that started, where even one little thing that could look insignificant to the casual TV consumer becomes so taxing on you?
It was great. That's another fantastic, amazing question. And I will explain to you in a nutshell of exactly being the baby in the family. I could not fail. I had a sister that was in the top 3 students in her graduating class. I had a brother that was the president of his class. I had another brother that was the top 3 goalies in the state in hockey, and basically got scholarships to schools he wanted to go to after high school. My sister wound up going to school and wound up becoming a big lawyer. My brother Anthony wound up being a CEO or COO of a company. My brother Frank wound up becoming one of the top people in Home Depot and Lowe's in running stores and making stores make money. Arthur Blank and Bernie Marcus at Home Depot hired him just for that. My sister was the same one. She went to Notre Dame Law School and wound up working as a Secretary of Education in New Jersey. She was brilliant in education and in law in law. And my brother Anthony, he was a computer guy. He started computers in the 80s and did it up until he passed away in 2010. But when Anthony was there, he was like the guy that was like always, keep doing what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing to me. He pushed me. My father, doctor of education. My mother was a teacher. Everything that was done in my like as a kid enveloped me into where I became the person that I became, in a sense of not failure. One of my favorite lines in any movie of all time is in the movie Apollo 13. Failure is not an option. In my idea, it's mistake is not an option. Making a mistake is not an option. When you are doing a big show, there is no I get a do-over. You don't get a do-over. Now, I've always said this. I use the same thing, you'll drop a pass if you're a great player. Jerry Rice did not make every play.
Sure.
Jerry Rice was thrown. Joe Montana, Tom Brady, name them, John Elway, and name whoever you want. Every play wasn't made the greatest thing. The greatest play wasn't the greatest play. They dropped as many balls as they probably caught, if not more. So that's the way I look at it. My theory behind it is if you're doing something that you've done for so long, you want to drop the least amount of balls. And in a sense of this, to be an all-star, you have to be able to work with all-stars, like I said before, but you also have to put your mind. And me, the failure was the failure is not an option is the exact same thing that I put in. The mistakes are not an option. So when I sat in a chair and did a pregame show, if there's any legacy that anyone that you ever will speak about me with, they're going to say, Mike is the best mixer I've ever worked with in a chair. Now, I may not have been the greatest technical person when I first started, but I got better at that. It took time. But with pushing the faders, it was always came naturally. I mean, I was a little DJ when I was a kid. When I started pushing faders, when I got to the bigger consoles, I could sit behind a console and push faders. And I literally will turn to someone if they're working with me and I'll be like, we get paid to do this, right? I'll look at them and I'll be like, yeah. I go, we get paid. And they'll look at me and go, yeah. I go, you realize how lucky you are? And most people don't get that one thing that little passion moment that I've always had. I got the job at Fox Sports as a 31-year-old kid to work as the lead mixer for the MLB and NFL, NHL and Fox. When I was 31, 32 when I started, because I did baseball and hockey first. When I got that gig, it was unheard of for anyone under the age of 40 to be put in that chair, because they always looked at you as if there's no way in your 20s, late 20s, early 30s, you could ever be as good as a guy that was 40 or 50-year-old, because they've been doing it longer than you. I broke that mold at Fox because I went in there and said, you know what? I'm going to learn the show and I'm going to be the best. And failure, making a mistake and screwing up is not the option that I'm going to do. I'm going to be the best. And I cheated and I did. It's a little story. I'm going to go on a tangent, little side note, little tangent here. But I used to go in early when I was working Fox Sports Net to watch the NFL on Fox, so that the one day that I would sit in that chair to mix the NFL on Fox, I would know that show backwards and forwards. And that's how that was a cheat. I went and listened to the director, Bob Levy, the AD, Jennifer Love, the producer, Scott Ackerson. And I sat there and I listened to them produce that show. And so I knew that the first opportunity I got to sit in that chair, which was on a Thanksgiving of all days, I'm not going to screw up. And I sat in that chair, and it was funny. The day that I was supposed to do that job, it was supposed to be a 9-minute pregame show. Well, we wound up doing an hour pregame show, and it was like, I just knew that when I sat in that chair, I got one opportunity. 8 Mile, great movie.
Yes.
One opportunity. Eminem puts it perfectly. You have you screw up the one opportunity. You may never get that second opportunity. And again, I've made mistakes. Of course I have. Everyone has. I make mistakes on the Eisen show, and those guys bust my chops every day. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's the amount of mistakes that you make and the passion that you put into the mistake. If you sit there and go, oh, big deal, I made a mistake, who cares? I'm going to look at you and you're never going to work with me again. If you look at me and go, man, I made a mistake, and you keep talking about it, I'm going to be like, you know what? That's the guy I want. Because you now know that that's in your head. You're never going to do that again. You're going to do it once. There was a guy that I worked with at NFL and Fox. He played back the wrong billboard for a sponsored spot. He got taken off the show. Like, when I say taken off the show, he had been on the show for like 8 years. He lost his job because he made one mistake in a sponsorship. And this was years ago. This was like in 2000. I have told people over and over again, you never want to mess money up. It's all that. So your question in all of that, it's started as a kid and ended the first day I sat in that chair at Fox. And I knew, I want this job. And I'm going to make this job mine. And the way I'm going to make this job mine is I'm going to be the best guy that ever sat in that chair. And you're not going to want anyone else. And even if someone else does the job, you're still going to sit there and say, Mike did it better. That's what I want. That's all I want.
And I'm sitting in this chair and I'm looking back at 2017 when you tried out for the Houston Texans and were with the Cheerleaders. And I think to myself, nobody but Mike did it better.
It sucked.
That was a fun experience. You know, I watched the story. I saw you rehearsing with the gals, taking selfies. And I feel like there was an instance where I think you were okay with not being perfect.
I don't care. Yeah.
That's where you were okay with that. But being a part of that and witnessing the tryouts of the Houston Texans, and then how a lot of them embraced you and you became a really big part of that whole event. What was that experience like for you?
Oh, that was so cool. I mean, I'm actually still friends with multiple girls that were on that team, actually. And one of them just got engaged, and like, I congratulated her. And she's like, Mike, you were like one of the only people that we ever had that we're all friends with.
Oh,
and it was like one of those things. It was like, because they kind of knew that I sucked, and I knew that. At the end of the day, I'm one of those people that if I'm gonna, I don't. First of all, here's my biggest thing. My biggest, and greatest gift is I am just naturally funny. Like there are people that have to try to be funny. I've been told that there's something about me. JD Hansen, a director at NFL Network, said the greatest line to me. He's like, Mike, you're a character. They write sitcoms about people like you. You're the guy that literally they can write a story about because of the way you react. And that's all I try to do. And with Houston Texans Cheerleaders, I knew damn well when they originally said it, like, you sure you want to do it? I'm like, 100% I want to do it. Are you kidding me? Cheerleaders, me, this is going to be funny. Even if it's not funny, it's going to be funny. And I knew immediately, and it became one of the biggest things for that week, because I wound up getting invited back to go be a VIP judge on their tryouts. The head of the team, they loved me. This is how cool it was. So I went and watched the tryouts. So the VIP judges are sitting at these tables and your name's there and you sit and you go through the first 3 rounds of the tryouts. Well, they got done with the first 3 rounds of the tryouts. The head of the cheerleaders, I can't think of her name. She's going to kill me. She goes, Mike, just so you know, you can stay. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, the girls want you to stay.
Oh. And
I was like, oh, wow, this is real. So I hung out with the DJ who I wound up knowing from back east.
Okay.
A lot of people I knew from back in the early 90s and the late 80s, because he was from Philadelphia. I wound up sitting with the DJ. I watched the whole night from the beginning and the end. I think it was almost, I'm going to say 12 hours. We got out at 2:30 in the morning. It was the longest thing I'd ever seen in my life. The respect that I had for those girls that came there at 8:00 in the morning must have danced the same dance and different dances and did different things for literally 12 hours, and then had to wait to then sit with the finals that are 3 rounds up. And it was insane. It was like a real, to me, that's when that reality came into me and went, wow, I will never, ever sit and say, man, they're just like cheerleaders on the side of the sideline. That's an easy gig. It is. I will slap somebody if they say that to me. Literally, I would. And the girls knew that. They understood that I understood that even before I saw it. And at the end of the night, when we were all done, a couple of the ones that had gotten on, that had been on the year before, I walked down and we talked. I went, this is insane. I go, I've seen tryouts for teams. I've been at practices. What you guys just did was as hard, if not harder, than anything that any player in any sport's going through in tryouts. I go, I did it when I was in high school. Even though I sucked in hockey, I still could skate. But I went through tryouts. I go, you guys just did over 12 hours of this and didn't even blink an eye. And I was like, you can't even imagine. And that's what was cool. And again, I 100% believe that from the first time those girls saw me and those ladies saw me, they went, we get it. And you got it. And I think people that have that type of stuff see that. And it's why I think I'm friends with a lot of athletes, because I think an athlete, that's one of the biggest gifts an athlete has. The biggest gift an athlete has is he has the passion for what he does. An athlete, we've always said, and I'll use this example. If you're good in something, you pretty much would be good in anything. And I'll use this example. I'm a sound mixer. If you said to me, Mike, we want you to go out and be a tire repairman. Mm-hmm. All you are is going to do is repair tires. I'd be the best tire repairman, because I would learn how a tire repairman, what he needs to do. And then I would make the tire the best repair. I would patch it and do whatever I needed to do, so you'd never get a flat again. Players are the same way. Athletes are the same way. An athlete that could play one sport probably could play 5 or 6 other sports, because they'll be the best in anything they want to do. Because when you're really good at what you do and you love what you do, it's not a job. It's fun. And that's what the Houston Texans thing was. To me, that was fun. Even though I looked like an idiot and they made fun of me, which I thought was hysterical, it was one of the most fun things I've ever done in my life. And again, I loved every moment of that. From the second I went down there and looked like an idiot till the second I went back and saw those girls that stayed there for 12 hours and the passion that they had for what they were doing to make that cheerleading team that is a high profile for them. That's not a job because they don't really get paid, but it's a high profile that can get you to something else. Sure. One of my best friends was a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, Leah. She was in 1997. We're still good friends. I saw her audition tape. She had like a DVD that she wanted me to make. So we made it into a DVD, but I saw her like original audition VHS. It was insane what those girls are doing. Like they're each topping each other. So that of course, having Leah as a friend, of course, when I did the Houston Texans thing, it was like perfect because I was like, all right, who am I going to hit on, like hit up to tell me like, what do I need to do if I'm going to like dance with cheerleaders? I literally called Leah and said, Leah, I got to dance with cheerleaders tomorrow. What do I need to do if I'm dancing with cheerleaders? She goes, Mike, you're going to look like an idiot because they're going to blow you away. Just literally dance with them. And it's going to be funny. She goes, you're going to be funny no matter what you do. And sure as hell, I did exactly what she said. And it was funny.
So this was a circumstance where you didn't feel like you had to be perfect. I mean, you are in essence the Tom Brady of sound mixing.
No. And I will say this. Hold on.
Okay.
I consider myself the Tom Brady of pregame show sound mixing.
There you go.
Because I've been doing it longer than almost everyone I know. And that I will take to the bank. And I say that the sound, when it goes to games and stuff, there are goats that I've worked with. Like I know all the guys. Wendell Stevens, who does NBC, Scotty Prey, who does Monday Night Football, Fred Aldis, who used to do Fox. He actually just retired, so he was the A game. Then there's so many others out there, that are the guys that do the big games. Like, hypothetically, it's like Jeff Walker, the whole thing that happened with Jeff Walker, which was funny, the whole thing with the basket rim that they made fun of. I knew Jeff. Jeff had worked with me. They didn't know that. But I played that, and till this day, those guys still think that I'm like, I did that more as a joke because I thought another mixer was mixing that game. My friend Patrick Thornton, who was supposed to be mixing that game, but got switched to a different game. And the funny part about it is Patrick even quoted me on Twitter and said, Mike would never say anything bad about another sound mixer because we're all goats. We're all goats in our own. But I'm not going to lie to you. I am going to pat myself on my back. I am probably, and I say this, and I know guys that do pre-games, I would consider myself in that penultimate world of the top pregame mixer. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Bryan.
I was going to say, so how close have you been to fading down on being that penultimate pregame sound mixer and fading up on a career as a Secret Service agent?
Oh, that would be like something that would be, in all honesty, it was like, I would always have loved to have done that. My friend's father was a Secret Service agent. It's funny you asked that. People do know that I was a cop for a minute when I was a kid. And if they don't, you just heard it for the first time. And I did love law enforcement in the 80s. And I got into it because my friend's father was a Secret Service agent. I loved what he did. We got to go into New York City, into the Secret Service building, and right where literally the building that was next to where the World Trade Center was. That's where their offices were. We got to see some really cool stuff. I got a private tour of the White House as a kid. I got to go in Marine One, the helicopter. I got to go in the limo at that point. I forget what was before the Beast and the new limos, but the presidential limos. I got to go to the 1980 Democratic National Convention, all access as an ninth grader. I literally was in ninth grade. I had an all access badge to go anywhere I wanted in Madison Square Garden to basically walk around I could do whatever I wanted as a kid. My God, I would pay to do that today as an adult.
Oh, for sure.
Thank God, knock on wood, I've been lucky. I've done so many different events, from World Series to Super Bowls to World Cups, that I've been at so many things. And this year I'm going to do the Olympics for the first time, which is another insanity thing, because that was a bucket list. The only thing I haven't done in my bucket list now at this point is the Masters. We'll talk about that another time. But in reality, it's I could have literally gone that other route. And I was a cop. I did my audio, and I loved my audio. And I actually had some friends that were going into, like, they were getting in with Attorney General. They were doing things like this. I easily could have changed my career and done that, but I don't think I would have ever been as remotely happy as what I did in my life. And I say that I only have one regret. My only regret is that I didn't move to California earlier. And that is my only regret. I should have moved to California and come to college out here and built my career earlier. And I think I would have done other things. Who knows? But it would have been something in audio. I mean, when I do write my book, I'm joking, but when I do write the book, the chapter about how I got my job at Fox is insane. And how I got to where I was insane. It's like you could make a movie on it. And I've told people this. I came to LA with $1,000 and an apartment that my friend got for me and my ex-wife. It's like all these little things. I was going to move back to California. I was going to move back to New Jersey because I lost my job and I wasn't making money. And I had like $500 left in the bank, and I couldn't get unemployment because you had to work a certain amount of days to get it. It was like this whole messed up thing. I almost left California, and I got my Fox Sports Net job. There's so many things that happen, in the world that are kind of where the stars align. I know there's no question in my life that I've been lucky, but I've been blessed, but I've also been good. And I appreciate that. God gave me a gift. I can push the ever living out of a fader, and I can follow something that's crazy and push the ever living out of a fader. That's what makes it special. And had I done anything else, been a Secret Service agent or been a police officer and retired after 30 years, I think I would have probably not been as happy. I'm almost positive. And I say probably, it's more than definite, because I did audio as a kid. I did all this little crap in between. My father used to call me Sparky's Music Mix-Up, because that was this little cartoon that was a kid, when I was a kid, about somebody that never knew what they wanted to do. And I did all these little jobs, but I still stayed DJing. I still stayed doing my audio. Even when I got out here, I still wanted to do like I still wanted to do my DJing. So I bought like my DJ stuff. And when I got my Fox job, I knew, wow, did I know 27 or 28 years ago that I'd still be doing what I'm doing? Yeah. Because I knew once I got in, I'd never get out. Like, I knew you let me in the door. There's undoubtedly, I'm the guy that, and I say this, and it's why I love Deion Sanders. Modesty is not my virtue. I do not have modesty. I've never been modest. I know how good I am, and I know how blessed I am, and I know the gift that I got. I didn't get looks. I didn't get a great looking body. I wish I balloon up and down with weight. I wish I could lose 35 pounds or 40 or whatever and be like in shape. It's impossible for me sometimes because of my job, because of the hours. But I do know one thing. I got a gift to push a fader. And I knew that when I was a kid. And everything else I did helped me get to that point to where I realized that I could do that well.
When did you realize how superstitious you were?
Immediately. I started doing it when I was a DJ. And what's funny is I'm the ADD. I don't think you can be a good sound mixer without ADD. And I believe ADD has ADD people have their superstitions are part of the ADD. The ADD that I have is there's certain things I have to do before everything I do.
Like a neuroses.
Yes. And it's not a sickness, because I realize it, but it's one of those things that even like I do my Friday night music show that I DJ on the internet. When I do that, I play the certain same songs. I make my drink the same way. I make my coffee everything that's done is done neurotically in a certain way. When I do a big show, it's the same thing. And when I do a show, not even just a big show, there's neurotic parts. I wear shorts. I've been a shorts guy. I'm probably the greatest line that was ever said to me was by Barty Shiras, who's a producer at Fox Sports. His line, he said to me, he's like, there's only two people that can wear shorts to work every day and be really good at what they do. You and Kobe Bryant. I literally laughed so hard when he said that to me because I didn't realize what he was actually saying. And then I kind of just snorted. Oh my God. And then I realized what he was saying to me. He was basically saying, you wear shorts every day and it doesn't matter because you do a good job at what you're doing. Who cares what you're wearing? And I was like, I told him, Barty, I wear shorts. It's a super, like I told him, I have to wear shorts when I do big shows. I did a show in Philadelphia, an NFC championship. And it was like 13 or 14 degrees. And it was the last year that the vet was open, before the Link was open, Lincoln Financial Field. David Hill sees me walking around in shorts. And he turns to me and he goes, David Hill was the main guy from Fox, if you don't know him. He ran Fox. And I mean, he started Fox with Rupert and Ed Gorin and all the Scott Ackerson and Jack Simmons and all those guys, Bill Brown. And basically, he sees me and goes, what are you doing in shorts? It's 12 degrees out. I go, Dave. It's, I have to wear shorts. He's like, why? I go, it's superstition. I go, I got to wear shorts. He's like, if you don't put jeans on and wear jeans tomorrow, he goes, there's 2 days until the NFC champ. If you're sick and you can't mix the pregame show, I'm going to kill you. You're not going to have to worry about the cold killing you because I'm going to kill you. I swear to God, this is a true story. And this was the funniest thing. I had a pair of jeans I brought just in case. I literally put my shorts under my jeans. When I got into the truck, I took the shorts off. Took the jeans off and wore the shorts. David comes into the truck and goes, are you wearing jeans? And I go, yeah, they're here, but I'm wearing these for the show. Because you're in the truck, you're fine. Because, but if you're walking and you don't have those jeans on, but that's a superstition. Shorts, and I wear shorts on the Eisen show every day. People don't know why. And I wear different shorts I have had over the years. There's no one pair of shorts that has a superstition. It's wearing the shorts that are the superstition. It's not the pair. It's the fact that I'm wearing those. Jackets are the same way. I have jackets that I wear for big shows. I have 2 jackets. I just did boxing 2 weeks ago. I went and did boxing. When I went and did boxing, I have what I call the set jacket, which is the day before the show. And then I have the jacket I wear the day of the show. I literally bring that second jacket, and like an hour before the show, I change into that jacket. Now, mind you, that jacket's eventually going to wear away, but I will find another good luck jacket. But that's my good luck jacket right now. I've changed items, but I kind of have that superstition that I keep, that I have, that kind of rotates, but it's still the superstition. Like when I get up in the morning, there's a certain order on Sunday mornings before I go into Fox. There's a way that I wake up. I have to get up. I take my vitamins. I go in, I make my coffee, I walk back in, I have to shave. Once I'm done shaving, there's certain order of everything I do. If I do it out of order, I think I'm going to make a mistake or something bad's going to happen during my show. And I swear to God, even when I get in my car, there's a certain playlist of music I play going in every week. Every week I go in the Fox and Sunday mornings, I start a playlist of music. It starts with these songs. Lovely Day, Bill Withers, one of my favorite songs. First song that plays. That's the first song that plays. Sam and Dave, Hold On, I'm Coming. Second song. Like these are like the way I do this. Even when I do my Friday night show, I do the same playlist. That's a playlist. So everything that I do is essentially set up for that. And that's what makes my superstitions. And I've had them even from being a DJ when I was a kid. There were certain ways that I would start off the night with. I'd play a certain song. I'd end the night with a certain song. There were things that it's a soup. I've had it my whole life. And it's crazy that even when even when I was a cop, the way I got dressed, it's like there's and again, it's ADD, which I personally believe has made me a good mixer. Because if you don't have ADD, you cannot sit in my chair. Because I've watched guys that if they can't, like, think about it, when you're mixing a show, you're listening to a director, an assistant director, you're listening to the program, you're listening to stuff that you're queuing up, getting ready to play. There's multiple things you're listening to. If you didn't have ADD, you could never do that. And I firmly believe that the best mixers that I know have ADD. The ones that don't are the ones that make mistakes because they can't handle the multiple things going on. And I sincerely mean that. And I've watched enough people next to me that have sat in my chair, that have mixed shows, that have done what I've done, that are good and are bad. And I watch them and I see the way they react, even to the littlest things that go wrong. Like, oh my God, we lost this. If they don't have ADD and they can't tunnel through it, they fail.
So as a self-proclaimed psychoanalyst on the podcast, I believe all of what you're saying stems your superstitions to everything to your childhood and the fear of failure and how devastating that is for you and how you will blockade all of that, whether it's from the work you put in, the shorts you wear, all of that, the music you listen to, this all goes back to that desire to want to be somebody as a kid. And hey, if it's working, don't change it. Keep doing it, what you're doing. And Mike Del Tufo is just on this trajectory that's been so fun to watch. Catch him on the Eisen show, does a lot of work with Fox. He does the DJ show. That's on Fridays, right?
Friday, yeah. Great mix. I'm on Twitter. I always put it out on Twitter. It's always on. And just if you search One Great Mix or at Michael Del Tufo, you find it.
At Michael Del Tufo. Give him a follow on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Mike, I think we need to do this again sometime. This was a lot of fun, a lot of storytelling, and I know a lot of people will enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed your time and, of course, really look at your work as some of the gold standard in the business.
Thank you, Bryan.